Today on Capitalist versus Communist, we have our two guests, Karl Marx and Adam Smith, here to discuss their thoughts on the Industrial Revolution. The real tragedy of the poor is the poverty of their aspirations. This striking quote was said by the Scottish social philosopher and political economist Adam Smith, who states that the free market economies are the most productive and beneficial to their societies. He is known as the father of economics, and he believed that economic development was best fostered in an environment of free competition that operated in accordance with the universal natural laws. He's also said it is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interest. Our second guest is the German philosopher and revolutionary socialist Karl Marx, who has published the well-known Communist Manifesto and believed that by leveling the playing field and following communism, the problems that came with the uproar of capitalism would be solved. To Marx, profit is basically the accumulated exploitation of workers in a capitalist society, and to further his belief, he said, "Capital is dead labor, which, vampire-like, lives only by sucking living labor and lives the more labor it sucks."
To give a brief background on how this feud between you two even began, why don't you explain the movement that started it all?
Well, industrialization was the movement that began in England that transformed a primarily agricultural society to focus on the manufacturing of goods and services.
Smith leaves out the fact it was developed around 1750. The outdated economic ideals meant that individual manual labor was replaced by mechanized mass production, and craftsmen were replaced by assembly lines.
Why did this change happen? Why did the world go from working in the fields to working in the factories?
Well, as agriculture technology advanced, less people were needed out in the fields, and the conditions in England were perfect for industrialization around this time.
That is true. England had 7 factors that made it favorable for industrialization: natural resources, capital, transportation, support of government, education, labor, and an entrepreneurial spirit.
How do you think industrialization has changed this world? For better or for worse?
Industrialization has made society so much better in so many ways. I mean, are you kidding? Well, industrialization created an immense amount of positive change. It allowed goods to be produced in faster rate and a cheaper price, created more jobs, and allowed advancements in medical technology, just to name a few.
But the negatives completely outweigh the positives.
Oh yeah, there were tons of flaws with the system, like the loss of unique products, for example, but that's a small price to pay for such an effective system that can mass produce and more efficiently at a more affordable price for the customer.
Just a few? That's an understatement. Industrialization did much more damage than that. For starters, child labor. That's a big one, not to mention the poor working conditions, low wages, unskilled workforce, and crime. I mean, people of all ages were working in dirty mines and breathing in fumes for hours on end to help further this so-called amazing industrialization.
So Marx, how do you suggest we solve these problems?
I think that we should scrap the capitalist system altogether to allow the government to distribute funds based on need. If capitalism continues, the power will go directly to the wealthy. They'll make decisions out of greed and their own self-interest, causing for problems in the lower classes to get worse.
I would allow the natural laws of economics to solve these issues on their own.
The natural laws of selfishness and hostility?
You figure out supply and demand. But yes, I think that profit motive and competition would naturally fix the flaws within the industrial system. Communism just messes with humanity's natural desire to expand and succeed. If you want those minor issues of industrialization to go away, just let the natural laws of economics take its course.
So, would you say the Industrial Revolution was a success?
No, industrialization was not worth it. The problems it has created have been debilitating to society, and the damage it's caused is irreversible. Because of industrialization, corporations are rewarded for paying their workers virtually nothing and finding any way, regardless of inhumane consequences, to make the most profit.
Industrialization has opened up a new age of innovation, allowing people to have faster access to goods and products that have changed the way we live today. If industrialization didn't happen, you wouldn't have the dishwasher and washing machine in the house today. These inventions have allowed people to focus on bigger issues facing the world. Do you think Steve Jobs could have created the Macintosh computer if he had to spend 5 hours hand washing all his dishes and clothes?
Sure, industrialization may have gave way to new inventions, but industrialization is ultimately to blame for the way companies view their workers. They treat their workers with such little respect, giving them insanely long hours for such little pay, because of how industrialization has changed the manufacturing process forever.
So, what do you think of the world today?
Well, I think there is a much larger gap between the rich and the poor than in my time. This problem still appears in our primarily capitalist society, adopted widely throughout the world.
Well, the world today is absolutely incredible. It rewards those who actually work hard by giving them opportunities to rise to the top. Their innovation has taken the world to new heights. Of course, the problem of pollution is still around. I guess this is due to our lack of concern for the planet, or whatever. But through the laws of natural economics, people will fix it.
And finally, did your hopes for the future come true?
Seriously? My hopes for the world were definitely not fulfilled. There's still a large gap between the classes and, no countries follow the principles of communism.
Enthusiastically, yep, my hopes for the world were pretty closely realized. I guess even now, the world is still not completely capitalist. There are some governments in which government control over economics is extreme, and this is the end will cause instability in the country. Without capitalism, they'll fail for sure.
That's all we have this evening. Thank you and good night.
Well, industrialization. Okay.
It's the worst. Your blooper.
Society that manufactures.
So close. Okay, come on.
Okay. Well, as agricultural technology advanced, the people were needed. Well, as agriculture.
Well, the job thing was twice right
efficiently at a more affordable price for the customer. That's so bad. If he had spent 5 hours on hand washing. Almost.
That was so. In hostility? It's funny because I say hostility and I'm being hostile.
You gotta be loud.
You have to be louder.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
No,
Not
not
like
that.
that.
I like it. Wow.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Okay.
You can do
Do it.
it.
Okay.
You can do it.
And then you snorted, but
Wait.
That's fine, that's the end.